There are good reasons I know that Jaxson Dart is in the right hands with Brian Daboll and the Giants coaching staff. Because any respectable developer of young talent, regardless of the enterprise, understands that being in charge isn't about being in charge. It's about taking care of those within your charge. A natural leader of a coach understands that his quarterback is an extension of himself on the field. So giving that young quarterback the right mix of support, education, and challenge is crucial to development. That last part is so important, and I stress it so much because in the modern game of football that has tried so desperately to make life easier on the quarterback, we forget that without stress, there is no growth. I've been together some throws from Jaxson Dart's second game, and I'll follow up with the third game shortly after. We'll work together to draw back the curtain and get a firm grasp on this preseason performance. Stick around. Let's run the 9.
You do it like this.
When we left off from Dart, I had a critique on two different things. Exploiting and understanding nickel and DB pre-snap leverage, especially with concepts like H-over, and then slowing down his footwork and kind of some of the manic movements with it as he climbs the pocket working from front side to backside reads. I also said that the road doesn't just get magically easier from here out. You now have film out there for defensive coordinators to study who are going to pour over every single rep they can find just to understand how your mind works. I found it to be no funny coincidence that the first two concepts dialed up by Brian Daboll versus the Jets were just that. H-over and then a sales the backside level concept. Again, going back to the best leaders stress their players to help them grow. We're going to look at these two throws he needs to clean up first before we move on to the positive marks. The G-men come out 11 personnel on first down and reset the formation strength pre-snap by sliding the Y to the boundary on motion. This forces the boundary safety to spin down over him in man coverage in the slot. Now what this also means is that the field safety now has to rotate to that single high, being around 15 yards off at the time of the snap. Combine this motion with the outside shade leverage from the nickel DB, along with the fact that the linebackers didn't push out to the Y on motion, and post-snap you have a run action that goes to the now weak side, sucking down second-level run fits. Means your recipe of motion combined with ball action invite a natural throw away from the flow of run action and linebacker pursuit with no threat of the boundary safety hanging out playing essentially an over-robber. Now this throw isn't easy to grade. Throws are usually subjective anyway. But the pressure from the backside DT, getting the best of the right guard coming out way too high and sloppy in his stance, this allows the 2-eye to cross his face and plant himself right in Dart's throwing lane. But something that does concern me is despite the fact that Dart can read this concept from 1 to 2, outside to in, high to low, with the H-over being the second read, his eyes really started to that slot 1 of 1 the moment the motion clued him to the linebackers. Either they are going to be bringing pressure or they're going to be aggressive to that run fit with the single eye coverage on first down. Now, there's no guarantee that this connection is made, but it's more natural to have your shoulders square with a throw to the interior when selling ball action to this weak side than it is to come all the way back downfield to have your shoulders exposed to the outside boundary, chalking up a prayer and attempt at a backside buzz. Now, getting rid of the ball in this case is great. You didn't eat the sack. But you also can't anticipate unrealized pressure and think you'll be landing a perimeter shot. What you really need are higher percentage throws on first down to stay on schedule. This next rep is actually pretty straightforward. Like anything today, we take classic concepts, we dress them up with varied pre-snap motions to make them look like some high-functioning play. The G-men use exit motion from the halfback to the strength, and this creates a quads look. Now, any motion like this helps to more clearly define the layers of coverage and works as a strong cheese, especially for flat and hooked curl defenders. The strong side concept functions like two different ones actually combined, China and Hank. Now, both have a commonality in that China has two receivers attacking the intermediate positive area of the field, being read in to out, much like what a concept such as Hank would be. But the tweak with China is that the number 3 in the pattern is running to the 7. Now you'll hear it called a pylon, a flag, or a corner route. This creates both a high-low, but also an in-to-out threat. What it does is it makes this concept incredibly effective against both single and 2-high coverage shells. But instead of electing to work this route structure, Dart again gets his eyes locked into that X, Lil Jordan Humphrey as the single receiver, in one-on-one. Now, at face value, you really don't want to begrudge a quarterback for taking what some coaches call the matchup throw. This was the same little Jordan Humphrey you had a big time touchdown to in game one, so why not necessarily go back to what works? The problem with locking onto a throw like this is that you tend to miss the wood for the trees. Putting a fine point on my theme, first down offenses need to stay on schedule. And instead of challenging defensive eye discipline that exit motions tend to create, and then working the more, shall we say, coverage-proof route design, you settle for the easiest read on the field, but also the lowest chance of a completion. You also don't challenge yourself as a quarterback to improve your understanding of coverages and how to better exploit them. In any cover 3 versus trips or quads, what you're going to get post-snap essentially functions a bit like match quarters as it relates to both the corner and strong side high safety. The strong side corner ends up getting put in a MEG call, MEG standing for man everywhere he goes. Some coaching staffs would call it a merc. While the high safety is going to split his route read between the number 2 and the number 3 receivers, matching the release of the vertical most between those two. Where Dart misses his best opportunity to pick up both an explosive throw but also a higher percentage one is reading this concept like you would China. Your read, high to low, out to in, would see your number 3 having a free release to a more undersized safety, as your eyes turn this into something of a read corner, throw corner kind of concept, the corner again being clearing the alley in MEG coverage. This allows you to throw outside and high before the safety, and far enough high and wide after the corner should he somehow get a beat on the route concept and more aggressively fall off his coverage responsibility. That's the biggest takeaway I have from Dart on these early throws. Defenses challenge Lil Jordan Humphrey in single, and then they overplay him vertically with their corners, while structurally they invite Jaxson to lock onto these low percentage throws by giving him these looks. Those two things combined help defenses win the down and put the Giants' offense behind schedule. When you make short-sighted throws like this, you're telling the defense that you'll take the simple read by the matchup, and then at that point, DCs are just going to tell their DBs to adjust their route leverages, knowing full well anytime you get a pre-snap man coverage look, you're probably going to attempt to just attack outside and vertical. Again, this is very short-sighted decision by a quarterback. It only harms offensive efficiency and eventually third down conversion rate. This is where we get to see Dart work things that are fun and easy for him. This is dealer's choice to seam settle with goes on the outside. It functions a bit like a pole concept. This is also a mirror concept. Mirror concepts are two of the same route combinations, just run at different sides of the field. I say dealer's choice because these are half-field reads where the quarterback generally starts his eyes away from coverage rotation and where the most underneath defenders leverage to. What I love about this throw is that sometimes football really can be this easy. Dart reads the high safety expand like he's in high cloud. The corner is sitting in low cloud reading quarterback eyes. This is only a 5-man protection because the halfback releases through the A-gap. Dart knows that. So what he's reading is cover 2 and essentially just replacing the body that is the middle linebacker with the halfback on a check down. This is going to allow this back to work the space, get yards after the catch. It's just an efficient, high percentage throw against cover 2 with a young quarterback being decisive and safe. You really can't complain with this body of work. This is the last of the throws that involve Dart actually reading and working progression 1 to 2. It's a concept called shallow cross. It's a high-low read that stresses second-level defenders in match, spot zone, those who either get too much depth, opening up the shallow drag in front of them, or being too aggressive defending these shallow routes, and then opening up the deeper basic route behind it for a quarterback to layer a good throw. It's also fantastic against man coverage because of how quickly that shallow drag can develop. Now, most shallow cross or Y cross incorporate something of a backside post with it. This makes it incredibly effective against cover 3 or 2 high shell looks that rotate DBs to create cover 3 looks, especially when they rotate that post side DB to buzz, rob, or curl flat. This rep is, in a nutshell, something that the quarterback I hope Dart learns to balance, but I also hope it's something of a staple install for the Giants' passing offense because it really shows off his and the rest of the G-men's personnel strengths. To quickly summarize this throw, you have the H running something of a jerk route, setting up the boundary linebacker and then beating him back underneath. That is your shallow cross. To the strength, you have the number 3 receiver running a post. Now, this creates the high-low that I had mentioned. In certain flavors of cover 3 and cover 4, when the number 2 to the weak side doesn't push vertical to threaten the safety, that DB now takes his eyes and begins looking for work coming from the strength that is both vertical and over, looking to either rob or double receivers. In this case, it would be the number 3 receiver running the post. Dart correctly puts his eyes and reads that boundary safety and uncorks a pretty nice throw with solid velocity that arrives just before the DB arrives and allows his receiver to begin protecting himself. DH running the jerk route is, in my opinion, the better throw, both as a personnel matchup and as a structural throw, especially when we consider that the strong side linebacker, his responsibility is to expand and carry, or coaches will call it wall off and carry vertically, the number 3 receiver downfield to the DBs. This helps to protect those high safeties from immediate quick releases. This also removes any immediate lateral threat and allows that same slot wide receiver the ability to maximize his yards after catch working that shallow cross. It's probably the throw I would have taken as a quarterback. Again, that's just my opinion. That said, there is a caveat to my appreciation of Dart wanting to drive this ball downfield and to create explosive plays, and that he doesn't have elite quickness with his throwing motion. So what he needs to focus on improving the most, the thing that will come with reps and throws, is timing. In a league that is all but banned hard hits, there are no more Brian Dawkins, there are no more Troy Polamalu's, this may be the throw that you can get away with preseason. But in the regular season, you're going to find DBs who will get a hand on this ball before going to hit. So your release needs to be as the wide receiver is clearing into the window, not he has entered into the window and already begun getting lateral separation from the linebacker. This split second will save your wide receiver's health, but also help you reduce turnover concerns by throwing late and throwing vertical to the middle. The last 2 plays reinforce what I had said at the start of this video. Brian Daboll working to make Dart an extension of himself by giving room for the young quarterback to make checks without overwhelming him. Now, this may not be a big-time throw, but a big part of any quarterback's job is to get his offense into the correct play, even if that correct play is checking to a run, which is exactly what Dart does in this rep. His eyes take him to 2 places pre-snap. The 2 high safeties that the Jets are playing, showing that they may be bluffing down the nickel DB to get involved in the run fit. And then the Jets' defensive front, where they're playing a closed end to the strength. Closed means the defensive end to the strong side is not playing to the 7 technique outside the shoulder of the tight end and on the edge, but is instead slid inside to more of a 5 technique to the tight end's inside shoulder. Yes, the open side in this case would be the weak side defensive end, the opposite of, again, open end and closed. These 2 pre-snap reads signal to Dart to change the play, which he does with a verbal and visual cue. Now, what this check tells the offensive line, the tight end, and the running back is that the design calls to seal that strong side defensive end in by using his natural lineman against him. This is with a combo block from that tight end, initially tossing the pin as the left tackle works across the defensive end's face to hold him back inside. The near side toss from the shotgun would see the Y get just enough time to reach the strong side linebacker, who really does a fantastic job reading this play, and the running back does an even better job cutting off leverage back inside to create something out of nothing. My final example of the Brian Daboll to Jaxson Dart play call synergy strength really highlights the Giants' offensive coaching staff and their attention to detail. Now, in that last play, the check to the near side gun toss, I'd mentioned the Jets' strong side linebacker aggressively triggering outside and downhill, followed up by the weak side linebacker and his run fit responsibility. That overaggression was something the Giants staff had seen and filed away for later, and they could not have called a better timed counterpunch on this touchdown pass. The Giants drew almost that exact same Jets defensive front with the closed end of the Y. Now, this means that any threat on the toss has to be met with that same strong side linebacker again aggressively triggering outside as the run force or to track the halfback in man coverage. Essentially saying that when this linebacker keys run, he is screaming laterally to plant his ass on the edge, either to push the running back out of bounds, securing the tackle, or turning him back inside to pursuit. The Giants dressed this concept up a little more the second time, while bluffing that same near side strong toss with another subtle change of pulling the backside guard. Now, this is done to really draw the eyes and freeze or move linebackers laterally or any second level pursuit from retreating vertically and camping out into a throwing lane. With the fake on the toss combined with the pull from the guard, this sees the weak side and strong side linebackers trigger fast keying run and then flying to their run fits. The clean release from the Y and the strong side edge being unblocked gives a shade of something of a speed option look, only putting a further bow on the sales job that was this play. The Y then bends this back inside, being that there's no middle field safety, and this allows Dart to plant that back foot, turn, and throw up a very comfortable rhythm pass. Touchdown Giants, a brilliant combination of coaching, forward-thinking play calling, and execution from your players. This is part 1 of 2, so I don't have a really lengthy close, but I will say this. Chemistry isn't just found on the football field between your players. It's also equally, if not more, found between your head coach, your play caller, and your quarterback. No, Dart is not yet surgical, or is he ready to start, nor should he be starting. But Game 2 showed some of that promise the Giants saw from him coming out of Ole Miss. I'm still looking forward to finishing Game 3, seeing more of that promise, and sharing it with all of you.